everybody, it's me, GhostCritic, with my Monday Will That Happen video. And once again, there really wasn't a great deal coming out of the comic book world for me to have a chat about. Yes, there's lots of oh, this is coming to Secret Wars, or this is coming out of Convergence, but they're just solicitations. Not really very interesting, and I haven't really got a great deal to say about them, which kind of left me in a quandary what to do with this video, because this seems to be becoming a trend where I don't actually have much in the way of news to talk about. So I'm guessing this is going to become anything can happen Monday. But fortunately, I have something for you due to the latest tag video that's going around. This was started by great YouTuber Howlermouse, Tim, who has been spreading the tag out for your favourite John Bryne issues. Had a huge impact and influence on certainly the 80s Marvel comics. Some of my favourite periods of comics had John Bryne in them in some way or other, whether he was writing it, whether he was the penciler, whether he was the plotter of the story. Now, I can't quite remember whether Tim had said this is one issue or you can choose a few. I've chosen 4. 2 are kind of together, and the reason for that will become clear once I get to them. So let us kick off with my first issue that I'm going to pick, and I can't help but put these in there. It is, of course, Fantastic Four issue 252. Now, you may notice I am holding this sideways, and it's not just because the cover is set in a kind of a widescreen sense. It went through the whole comic book. You had to read it this way. It says at the top, usually it says the world's greatest comic magazine. This month it said the world's most innovative comic magazine. Now, I wanted to know why this was, and I did a little bit of research on this, and apparently, if what I've researched is true, this is the first time that a comic book took the wide screen, what they call the widescreen use of comic books, where, as you can see, because I will of course open this out for you, every panel was sideways. And you're not going to get a great look at that from a camera, but and of course the adverts are still in there. Basically what this was a great kind of mix of the sci-fi and superheroics of the Fantastic Four. And I mean, I've said this time and time again about Fantastic Four, is that, to be honest, I much preferred them when they were off-planet, where the stories didn't kind of be based on Earth, and we were able to go either, as in this one, to the negative zone, or we'd go out into space. And it was just the kind of reminder to the readers of the Fantastic Four that, you know, really, first and foremost, the Fantastic Four were known as explorers, and there's only so much you can explore on the Earth, so you have to go inner space, negative zone, outer space, and this is when I had the most fun with Fantastic Four. This was a 4-parter story where they, like I said, they were exploring this planet within the negative zone, and the consequences of coming to a strange planet. But the best thing, obviously, about this was this kind of, I guess you could call it a gimmick in this wide screen setting. But what it did was it allowed our artist, which in this case was, I think John Bryne did actually do a lot of the artwork on this as well, but you've got Glynis Wein and Jim Novak also on art duties, but you would get these great sweeping cityscapes and the use of like stretching out the panels that you wouldn't normally see or get to see during your read of a comic book. So it just added this extra element to the comic book, made it more exciting, made it more dynamic, and it was almost kind of cinematic in its reading. So that's my first issue of John Byrne's that I really loved. So I said at the top of my video that I had 4 comics to show you, and that 2 of them were in some respects, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly, connected. They both came out in the same year, in the same month, and they were also given the same treatment. And I say treatment in that every year Marvel did their assistant editor months, where the assistant editor would be allowed to bring out a comic book for that month. It did not have to be within continuity, and just weird and wonderful and, like I say, out of continuity stuff could happen. And this is something that, much like the Nuff Said issues of the 90s, the silent issues, this was something that the Marvel fanboys were really looking forward to and just didn't know what to expect. So my 2 issues that I've picked that portray these, they both, like I said, they came out at exactly the same time, and they were both written and penned by John Byrne. Now my first one was, again, it's Fantastic Four, issue 262. This is the trial of Reed Richards. And one of the most obvious highlights of this comic book is that John Byrne plays a part in the comic book. It starts kind of jokey in that John Byrne is at his desk, his easel, he doesn't know what to write for the next Fantastic Four story, and he has a visitation from the Watcher who says, you have to come with me, you have to bear witness to the trial of Reed Richards, and you can write this as your next story while it is fresh in your mind, so to speak. Now, it's all based on a couple, 2 or 3 issues back, where Galactus had just devoured one of the Skrulls' throne worlds and killed billions and billions of Skrulls, which, you know, is probably a good thing in the grand scheme of things, because, you know, they're not a nice alien race. But it is the actual saving of Galactus' life by Reed Richards that this kind of galactic court council took some umbrage to, and why Reed Richards is on trial. It's a great issue where we see some huge characters. Not least, we've already seen the Watcher, we had Odin in there, Eternity turns up, and finally Galactus. Of course, Reed Richards is found innocent on a kind of technicality, where it is seen as Galactus isn't actually he's neither evil or good. He's just doing what the universe has given him to do. He's more like a force of nature. So saving or not saving his life becomes, I guess, irrelevant. There is a kind of ominous ending from the Watcher, where he just kind of utters, where he says that the day that Galactus is stopped, let the universe mourn. And it kind of gives this impression that once Galactus dies, so does our Marvel universe. That has yet to happen. It could still happen. Who knows what's going to happen in the future. But this was a really fun, kind of kooky, off the wall issue. Some great artwork in here. Some great shots of, let me see if I can find it. Some great Galactus shots there. Just great fun 80s stuff, which was a little bit different, given it was Assistant Editors Month. Now I'm going to break a little from the Fantastic Four to show another title of Marvel. Like I said, this came out in the same month and part of Assistant Editors Month, and this was a bit controversial. Alpha Flight issue number 6. Anybody who recognises this cover knows what's to come. This is Snowblind, a story that was focused on Snowbird, who was part of the Alpha Flight team, their premier superhero team in Canada. And the story is primarily about Snowbird and her fight against Colomac, who is released from beneath the ground because of some drillers drilling into the ground for oil or whatever. And there is this epic battle between Snowbird and Colomac. Now you're probably thinking, for those of you who don't know what's inside here, you're thinking, well, that doesn't exactly sound very exciting, Mark. What is the premise here? What's the excitement? What's the twist? Well, the twist was that essentially there are 5 blank pages within this comic. At the beginning of the fight, this Colomac brings about this huge snowstorm to fight against Snowbird, and we start having these blank pages. We still have the panel constructions, we still have all the captions, we have the thought balloons, but we don't see any of the action because we're in the middle of a snowstorm. So we have to basically read everything and imagine what is going on. It's a very interesting gimmick, if you want to call it that, or it's a very clever way of telling a storyline. The final page culminating in a kind of avalanche landslide, and we get back to the pictures. Now, there is some contention about why this actually happened, because you've got to remember he was also at the time writing this one, which is obviously very artistic. It's got very detailed artwork in here. Some say that because he was doing both of them, that he was saving himself kind of a lot of work, but at the same time getting paid exactly the same amount of money. But it also, some people have suggested that this was kind of John Byrne's way of kind of poking at Marvel and their kind of chain production line of making comics at the time. Who knows what he was really thinking, but I just think it's a really clever way of telling a story. So those are those two. Got one more for you. Now my last choice, again, it's Fantastic Four. I'm sorry, whenever I hear of John Byrne's name, I almost immediately link it with Fantastic Four. It is the series that I'm trying to collect and complete, and he was such an instrumental force in revitalising Fantastic Four in the 80s with his kind of 5-year stretch run. And this is kind of like the turning point of Sue Storm, the Invisible Girl, that he instigated within his run. Here we have the kind of tail end of the story arc where Sue Storm has been possessed by the evil entity Malice. And Malice has been using Sue Storm and her powers to be honest, a lot more effectively than Sue ever did in the past. Sue was always seen as kind of the weakest member of the team. She didn't have like the great brain of Reed Richards. She didn't seem to have the strength or the muscle of the Thing, and she certainly didn't have the pyrotechnic capability that Johnny Storm had as the Human Torch. And of course there is that link, like, she is just a woman, and by the end of this there is a kind of now we look back at it and go, ooh, that's a bit for the time, but I'll get to that when we continue on with the story. She has, I say, she's been possessed by this entity Malice. She's now using her powers way more powerfully than she ever has done. She can use her powers not just to kind of protect with her force fields, but she can kind of throw projectile objects using her invisible force. It's a lot more aggressive, a lot more violent power, and we see this while she's fighting Reed and Johnny. There's a great couple of panels that I'll just show you and find while she has a fight. Reed Richards tries to, he doesn't know at this point, neither of them know that this Malice character is actually Sue Storm, and so Reed Richards kind of wraps Malice up in this ball of his body, as you can see here, and what she does, she exerts her force, which blows his body into these huge spikes. A lot more aggressive power or use of Sue Storm's invisible powers. Now, towards the end, because they realise they're not going to defeat Malice by pure kind of fighting physical force, Reed kind of saves the day with some very some basic psychology, some kind of reverse psychology. But what he does do when he finds out that it is his wife at the end, she kind of unmasks and it's all shock horror. He slaps her. He gives her a good right hand across the face, which of course raised some eyebrows. Even then, I don't want to use the phrase domestic violence, but violence against women certainly was being portrayed here. And at that point, the kind of character of Reed Richards was very much kind of frowned upon for taking this kind of final affront to his wife by hitting her. Now, it is at this point that we see a turning in, because she is at the moment Invisible Girl. It wasn't until a couple of issues later where she is tortured mentally by Psycho Man that, you know, the events that have led up to this, not only her being taken over by this entity Malice, but also losing another child through a stillborn birth. This just kind of tips her over, and she's no longer this girl. She is a woman. I would suggest checking out the next two issues after this for that great scene. Inside there are some fantastic pieces of art. I showed you obviously Sue's use of power and it being more aggressive, but there are also this wonderful kind of two-page spread of New York City burning due to the planning and evil machinations of the hate mongerer. It's just another great story there with John Byrne pushing and renewing and giving a fresh lease of life to our Fantastic Four. Great issue, another fine John Byrne instalment. So that is it for my video. I hope you enjoyed my choices, Tim, and anyone else who's watching. He has asked that we shout out the names of the people who have already done videos. I have to say I'm a little bit behind. Fortunately, Tim has done a playlist of these on his channel. Go check it out. And if he's kept it as updated as I hope he has, these people have already done videos, so go and check these out. It's ETA Nick, Sandman Logan 5, Liking the Covers 4963, Tim Maron, Cosmo Bosco 771, Comic Order 410, and Jared Osborne have all done these tag videos so far. So I meant to tag, I guess, another 3 people. And my choices are, if you're watching, I hope, is Matt Wednesday Serial, Dr. Monkeybot, if you have the time, and Larassa. Please have a go on this tag video, your favourite John Bryne issues. Thank you all for watching. As I said, these videos are not quite going to plan anymore with the news, so if you have anything that you'd like me to talk about, any suggestions of things you'd like to see me do or talk about, then pop them in the comments section down below, and maybe I'll pick one out if I can't think of anything else to do on this Monday slot. So until then, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see any more of my videos, because I do a pull list video on Wednesday and I do a comic book review video on Friday, hit that subscribe button, you won't miss out on any of them. Give this video a thumbs up and let me know about your favourite John Bryne issues in the comment section down below too. Until next week, bye bye.